The fun thing about sports debates, particularly the type of one that we're about to have in this video that the internet has erupted with, and it bubbles up all the time, and I wanted to talk about it for a long time. The fun thing about these types of sports debates is it's entirely impossible to prove somebody right. You can believe that you have the right answer, but it is all entirely subjective. Right. There is only one entirely objective thing when it comes to sports, and based off officiating, sometimes that can even become subjective, and that is who wins the game. Right. Who wins the game, who loses the game, who won the league, or the trophy or the whatever, and who didn't. That is the only objective thing. The subjective thing is how you get there. And there's one thing that just permeates every single sport, and that is this comparison between eras. Right, and this idea that it was this way in this era and this way in this era, and that's where phrases like game's gone come from, or the game is gone, because initially that started as a very kind of serious phrase, and that, oh, the game is changing, it's gone soft, or whatever. And that happens in multiple sports. This is where these are the sorts of conversations where I kind of like being American, because I grew up around a bunch of different sports, and I've kind of, I picked up football last. Basically, like when I was 13 years old, and I was like, "Oh, Saudi Arabia plays too." Playing my my Nintendo DS. I actually had one for the 2006 World Cup. That's when I first fell in love with football and soccer to begin with. Outside of the whole orange slices in my church league when I was growing up, you know what I'm saying? Which everybody in the U.S. does play soccer at the age of like 6, 7 years old. Just in case you didn't know, just need to find a way to keep that momentum going. You know what I'm saying? But hey, we're already pretty good. I know we're not great, but we're already pretty good. Hopefully we'll show it at Copa America, but I'm getting distracted. This comparison between eras happens in every sport. In the NBA, it's always, well, Michael Jordan had to play in this, and LeBron, the league is soft, right? In the NFL, oh, we used to hit like this. Now they don't hit like that anymore. In hockey, oh, everybody used to fight. Now nobody's fighting anymore, right? Like there is this same thread. But there's an interesting discussion in soccer or football that doesn't really translate directly to any of those other sports. It's not about toughness. It's not about tackles. It's not about the way the game is played. It's about the aesthetic of the game, the beautiful game, joga bonito, right? Like it's the aesthetic quality, the entertainment, the box office nature of the way the game is being played. And specifically as it relates to Manchester City, right? There is a tweet that went triple platinum, right? And it's from this dude, FPL prop. What happened to Haaland? Somebody tweeted out this 2-minute, 20-second, because I think that's the longest that Twitter allows, video of Erling Haaland making really impressive plays, dribbling, passing through teams, things that he doesn't really do in Manchester City. Because if we're being entirely honest, he barely touches the ball at Manchester City. And then the tweet that went platinum was a reply to this. It said he got clockwork oranged. Same process that Grealish went through to go from a flair player, the X Factor, the box office he was at Villa, to the soulless, boring back pass zombie he is now. All are cogs in Satan's totalitarian system. Any ounce of creativity and you're in the gulag. This is something I hear referenced all the time when it comes to Jack Grealish, because he spent a long time in the spotlight as an X Factor type player at Aston Villa. Him and his calves and his bending shots and his fancy dribble moves and his smack talking. His hair bobbing all over the place, getting punched by, I think it was a Birmingham fan or something. All the sorts of drama that Jack Grealish was involved in on the field, right? He's still got his great persona off the field that just seems to have evaporated while he's been at Manchester City. He pump fakes at the defender 10 times, maybe draws a foul, maybe dinks it backwards. And I think this is a worthy discussion to have. I think that what this person is saying, I think they're onto something. I really, really do. But I think the something that they're on to is that for Pep Guardiola, the system is bigger than the players, right? The players fit into the system. And for some coaches like Carlo Ancelotti, the system augments the players. And what I think we've conclusively proven is that both can work at an incredibly high level. Sir Alex Ferguson was the same way. His system augmented the players. He was more similar to a Carlo Ancelotti than a Pep Guardiola. And both can win at the very highest level. I'm not saying either one is wrong, but there is something to this, that if I was a player, if I was a fan, going in to watch a Manchester City match, or going in to play at Manchester City, you kind of know what to expect. What I don't want people to grab and run away with is one of the replies to this tweet says, I swear only Foden, Bernardo, and KDB managed to escape that trap. That's because they're better at it. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. I love Jack Grealish. And I loved Erling Haaland being a little bit more free at Borussia Dortmund and being able to take players on the run. Foden and Bernardo and KDB are better at being creative players, at particularly Bernardo and Foden at dribbling, at attacking the team, at breaking the team down. KDB is probably the best passer in the world, if not one of the top 5. Now that Toni Kroos is retiring, top 4, right? These guys are the creative players inserted into the creative positions in Pep's system because they're better at it. Where Pep Guardiola acquires somebody like Jack Grealish and then utilizes him in a very particular way and does limit him. But the side effect of that limiting is that Jack Grealish gets to win. Jack Grealish is winning everything. And so is Erling Haaland. Both of those guys were part of the second ever treble, right? And we've talked about the 115 charges just for the purposes of this conversation, since we're literally talking about a tweet in stylistic play. We're going to leave those charges to one side. Obviously, Manchester City might get just yeeted down and have all of its trophies revoked and whatever. We don't know what's going to happen. The investigation's still going to take 6 or 7 more months. But just discussing purely stylistically, you get to win a lot, but you sacrifice the things that you're able to do, right? Jack Grealish won't be able to play if he keeps cutting in and trying to score from 20 yards out in the corner of the box like a right-footed Arjen Robben, like he did at Aston Villa. Right? He has a very strict set of instructions, and he has a skill set that translates well. He has a very high technical floor, great touch, great ball control, right? And great subtle movement, great balance and agility to draw quick fouls. He is a magnet for fouls. He can draw yellow cards off fullbacks as reliably as water is wet, right? Jack Grealish it must just be the hair and the calves and the tiny shin guards. He's antagonistic, right? And if it's not there, he plays pretty simple passes. Right? Because in the Pep Guardiola system, there's always an overload on that side. Like they're always creating an overload on the side. So unless he gets a really quick switch, there's always a very simple pass for Jack Grealish to make. Obviously, he is capable of moments of spectacular greatness, right? But they are flashing much less frequently because he has not offered the opportunity to go for them. He doesn't score a ton of goals. He doesn't get a ton of assists, the way that he was, cooking up at least great goals and great assists at Aston Villa. But he's part of a winning machine. He feeds that winning machine. And I think what we're talking about with Erling Haaland in the same way, he's been clockwork orange, like he's been conditioned. Yes, he has. Him and Jack Grealish have. They're not the only people on the Manchester City machine that have been conditioned to play into this system. Why did Pep Guardiola add Erling Haaland? Because Erling Haaland might just be the best shooter in the world. That dude's shot is atomic, and he has a nose for the goal. He has a knack for just steering the ball in the right direction. He has a knack for shaping the ball the right way, striking the ball. Pep Guardiola did not sign Erling Haaland to take on other players on the dribble. He did not sign Erling Haaland to try and make the incisive pass. He signed Erling Haaland because Erling Haaland can shoot just better than anyone. I mean, Erling Haaland rips the stanchion off the back of the net every time his left toe touches the ball. It comes off like a rocket. Right? It's accurate. It's sharp. He misses chances like any other striker, but he is just, it's not like Erling Haaland's not scoring goals. The complaint that everybody has about Erling Haaland when you talk about is he the best player in the world is because he doesn't really touch the ball during the match if he's not shooting. Right? Like they might play off him every once in a blue moon where he lays it off to somebody, or maybe he tries to split the line to a wing every now and again, but that's not how Man City's team is constructed. People are uncomfortable talking about Erling Haaland being one of the best players in the world. I'm one of them. I think he's the best goal scorer in the world, but I don't think he's the best player in the world. Right? Because to be the best player in the world, you probably got to do something a little else. Like Roy Keane, when he's talking about, Erling Haaland's a League 2 player doing other things. He's not. But he's not a world class. But the point that Roy Keane's trying to make is that Erling Haaland is not a world class player doing all those other things. Right? He's physically an absolute freak. And is an incredible shooter. And that's why Pep Guardiola added him. Because his system was missing that, and he knew he could incorporate it. Because he has his creative players. He has his facilitators. He's got his dribbly boy wings. He's got Doku. He's got Jack Grealish. He's got these guys that can... And then every once in a while, they actually do something. Right? Or their defender just gets dizzy from all the... like just that nonsense. And he's got his facilitators. Whether it be Foden, or whether it be Bernardo Silva, or whether it be Kevin De Bruyne, which, by the way, you guys always talk about, that's apparently the way you say it. That's like the way you say his name. I'm sure I'm not getting it 100% right, but it's closer than Kevin De Bruyne, which is why I say Kevin De Bruyne, just in case anybody was wondering. I do try and get people's names right if I feel like I can get close, and that's like actually closer to how you say it, at least based off of my understanding of me hearing it pronounced. Who knows? Maybe I just had a stroke. But the core of this entire discussion, because I do think there is something to it, I do think it's happening, is it soulless, boring back pass zombie, right? As it's described here. And I feel like this is what everybody gets to decide for themselves. What's the most important thing for you when it comes to football, right? Do you need it all to be Ronaldinho? Or do you value winning above all else? And it's not like the way Manchester City plays or other Pep Guardiola teams like Barcelona or Bayern. It's not like the way that they play is not aesthetically pleasing. It's just a certain type of aesthetic, right? And do you like that certain type of aesthetic or not? Because if you're watching that team, that's what you're going to get. They're going to literally pass the ball into the back of the net. Maybe you get a sexy pass from Foden. Maybe you get a sexy shot from De Bruyne, or now I'm overthinking it. Or you get a sexy shot from De Bruyne, or vice versa, right? With Foden with the shot or the dribble or whatever. But most of the time, it's going to be suffocation. Absolutely suffocate, overload, pass through, dink it home, right? Erling Haaland ends up on the end of a ball for the 8th time in the same game, and that's the way they're going to play, right? If that is aesthetically pleasing to you, or if just the most important thing is winning, then it works, right? But this is entirely subjective. But I do agree that it is happening. I don't think this is some weird conspiracy theory that players get fed into that Manchester City system and become, in some ways, way more limited than they were before. You know, they're only doing half the things that they were doing before, or in Jack Grealish's case, maybe even less than that, right? But Pep Guardiola is just trying to utilize that skill set to feed his machine. There is not a lot of individuality on Manchester City, but they do win games. And there are a lot of clubs that have a lot of individuality, and they win games too. There's more than one way to get the job done, and that's what makes the sport so great in the first place. So this conversation's never going to go away, and depending on where you fall on it and what's important to you is whether you find it cool or not. Is Manchester City appointment television for me? No. But I respect the ability to win as much as they do win. Who would I rather watch? Well, I'd probably rather watch like 2000 Manchester United if I had the choice, or like early 2000s Serie A. Sounds like a pretty good spot to be hanging out, just watching anybody hanging out in those teams. But if we're talking modern day, who do I think would be the best appointment viewing? You know what my answer is? I don't know. I really don't know. Do you know why I don't know? Because a lot of the top teams play this way. Manchester City is the best at it, but you can't tell me that Arsenal doesn't play a pretty similar style. I mean, obviously there's like a coaching lineage here. Like, the uncomfortable truth is there's a lot more Pep Guardiola systems out there than Carlo Ancelotti systems these days. That's the truth. And so there are a lot of players that are being, I don't want to say sold for parts, but are having their virtues extolled while while their creativity is being limited. I'll leave it up to you whether you think that's a good thing for the game. My only thought is it's inevitable, right? Because these people get paid to win, and they're seeing that is likely the best way to win. You gegenpress, you have your structure, you have a very astute tactical understanding, and you get the best out of the players that you feel like you can get the best out of. And if these people are getting paid a ton of money to win and not put on a show, like this isn't WWE here, right? You're not, or like maybe prize fighting or something where you're getting paid for putting on a fantastic show. There's no fight of the night bonus in the Premier League, right? There are bonuses for where you finish in the league. So everybody's going to do whatever they think they need to do to try and win the game, and whatever happens to the actual entertainment value of the game in the process is kind of like a side effect, unless the game changes fundamentally forever. Now, do I miss a player like Ronaldinho being around? Obviously, but I feel like this sort of thing is almost inevitable. And it might actually be bad for the game, but you know what? The game kind of auto-corrects itself. Eventually, everything's going to get so rigid that there's going to be some new genius creative coach that shows up and loosens the screws a little bit and lets all of that creativity out and finds the next Ronaldinho and pairs them with a player like, I don't know, like a David Beckham or something. These players that are able to you bring sexy back like Justin Timberlake and bring the flair back into the game, and all of a sudden they'll overwhelm these overly rigid sides that they're playing against. I hope that the trend will continue that has continued through the past, that there will be this one tactic and everybody rigidly falls in love with it, and then there's this free-flowing way to overcome it, and then that becomes rigid, and then there's another free-flowing way to overcome it. I don't know when that trend stops and everything just gets super formulaic and exactly the same, but hopefully it doesn't. And hopefully we'll flow back into a more creative way of playing in the future. But right now, this is kind of just how it works. And if you're Jack Grealish and you want to play for one of the best teams in the world, you're probably going to need to play like this. And there's going to be like 3 or 4 center backs on the field and inverted fullbacks and overloads and possession-based systems and high-octane pressing. And that's just the way that you're going to have to play. You're going to need to have that tactical understanding to do anything. But it is a very interesting conversation. And I think it's one worth having, and it's something very worth pointing out.